Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man Podcast. My name is Rory Paquette, and I know you know that already, but I just keep needing to remind myself how lucky I am that I get to sit in this seat. Folks, the stuff that you've been doing lately, the DMs have been off the charts. Yes, I used a different coffee cup a couple episodes ago. I'm really sorry that that happened. I'm back to the good one now. We don't have to worry. Everybody's okay. But the fact of the matter is that you guys have been absolutely turning out in droves ever since we went to 5 days a week. You've supported us like I could never have imagined. Thank you, thank you, and thank you. I'm grateful, and as long as you're out there doing what you're doing, I get to sit over here and keep doing what I'm doing. So, in exchange for that, I promise to keep bringing you awesome, powerful men with powerful messages and great stories, and you folks just sit back and enjoy. Now, if you're a friend of the program, and I know you are, then you know we got to pay a couple bills real quick. So let's pause for just a moment while I, take a sip of my preferred beverage. Wow, man, that is good. I think it gets better every time. It gets better with age, almost, kind of like me. But the fact of the matter is we are drinking Freedom Hill Coffee today, folks, at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up, check them out. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful, just like my wife. Fact of the matter is they do all the right things for all the right reasons. They brew a mean cup of joe and they support veterans, which you all know is a huge thing for us here at Power Man. We respect them too, and that's one of the reasons why we support Freedom Hill Coffee. So, Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram, at Freedom Hill Coffee. Go check them out. Look them up. Tell them Power of Man sent you. Let me get one more sip of this so I can keep up with this guy sitting across the table from me. Woo, there we go. Nice, really good. All right, let's do this. Let me bring in our guest today. We have author, speaker, father, husband, MC, strategist. Did I say author? Because it's author several times over. And it has a marriage ministry on top of everything else. And I bet I didn't even name everything. But let me just get this guy in here so we can start telling you about everything that he has to offer. Please welcome to the show, Kyle Gabhart. Kyle, how you doing?
Thank you, Rory. It is an absolute pleasure to be here. And as a coffee aficionado, which was not one of the things on the list, but it is absolutely true, I have to say that I'm a big fan of coffee. I've not tried what you're sharing with folks, but I definitely plan to. And I will further say that if you aren't doing it in a French press, you're doing it wrong.
Oh, I love
So,
that. I
so
love
Freedom
that.
Hill, I can only imagine Freedom Hill in a French press has got to take it to another level entirely.
Oh my goodness. All right, that's it. You raised the level. You've raised the bar, brother. I got to go get a French press now and bring this in.
Yes, sir.
Oh
Yes, sir.
man. All right, beautiful. Kyle, I love it. I know we have a lot to talk about, and you've got a
Yeah.
book coming out and everything else. So before we do that, go ahead and give everybody an idea, though. Who is Kyle Gabhart, and what brings you here today, brother?
Yeah, great. I appreciate the opportunity. So I'm a native Texan, born and raised. There's a plaque in my office that says, "Never ask a man where he's from. If he's from Texas, he'll tell you, and if he's not, don't embarrass him." So I take my native Texas roots very seriously, and got father of six, grandfather of two, and just thrilled to pieces with that upgrade that we got about 3.5 years ago to grandparenthood. I tell my wife on a regular basis that grandchildren are our reward for not eating our young. In the wild, sometimes animals eat their young, and if you're a father or a mother for that matter, you know why, because sometimes they just drive you nuts. But if you don't eat them, you actually can get rewarded and eventually get promoted to grandparent, and it is absolutely delightful. So really, really enjoying that phase of life. We're empty nesters, so we're having a lot of fun with that, and being able to pursue passion projects, including marriage ministry and now the canteen. The canteen in particular is special to me because it's been stirring in my soul for goodness gracious 27 years at this point. So excited to
Nice.
talk about that.
Nice. We're still waiting for our promotion to grandparent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had one son who got married this past year. My other son and my daughter are both getting married this October.
Okay.
Then all my kids are all linked up, and it's like, come on, it's time. Somebody give me a grandkid.
Yep.
So I'm probably the worst. I'm putting more pressure on them than anybody because I'm like, look, I have nothing to do except just podcast all
Right.
day. Give me
Yeah,
something.
that's right. That's right.
So I love that. I love that.
Yep.
Anyway, so the canteen now that it's the new book, but it sort of talks about your first big story in your life, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It's wild. So when you hear hey, I went on a mission trip as a teenager, there's a certain image that comes to mind. Like a lot of people have had that experience in some fashion, and it's the herd of like 30 or 40 kids running around together, staying in hotels, and granted, getting to do some really cool work, maybe with orphan kiddos or maybe help building homes. Like there's a lot of great mission opportunities like that, and that's awesome. Some of our six kiddos have got to participate in that over the years. This was a very, very different experience. This was me and a native translator backpacking into remote villages to share the gospel.
Wow.
Completely different experience. Um, I was in Africa for a month. I was in the bush for 10 days. I was in really good shape. It was, I was 19. I worked out all the time. I was in prime shape. I lost 10 pounds in 10 days while in the bush. I dropped 1 pound every single day just from all the hiking, from carrying my gear, from just being out in the elements. It was a different animal
Wow.
entirely. Yeah,
I can't even imagine that. And you were how old?
19.
19. So straight out of high school,
Mm,
pretty much. And then you're going to do
yep.
this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I got to ask, what leads somebody coming out of high school in Texas to go do this as opposed to everything else?
Yeah, great question. So, my dad was in the pulpit 30 years, and at one point in time, I thought that was the path I wanted to go down, walk in my father's footsteps, as it were. And so there was a missionary, a South African missionary, who had fought in the Rhodesian Civil War. He was a mountain of a man, and he was a missionary that our church supported. And so I had heard over the years reports from him, and he would come back to the States periodically, and he would be giving us updates on how the work was going and how the villages were receiving things and so forth. And so one of these trips, he actually came to Texas, and he was sharing in person as opposed to just sending us an update. And as he was describing it, I was really intrigued, and I was asking lots of questions, and he just threw the gauntlet down and said, "You should join me." And I was 19 and I'm like, what have I got to lose? Sure, sign me up. And so I spent a month in Africa between South Africa and Zimbabwe. I spent about 2.5 weeks in South Africa, some with John, the gentleman that I was referring to, and then some of the time with another preacher, Les Maydell. And so John Skoltz and Les Maydell were the two gentlemen I spent time with in South Africa. And then halfway through the trip, John dropped me off in at the border of Zimbabwe, introduced me to Peter, who was 22 at the time, 3 years my senior, and then he was my Sherpa, as it were, and we spent 10 days going through the bush, and it was wild in every sense of the word.
Yeah. Now, a couple questions, if you don't mind.
Please.
What were you bringing to these villages?
Ooh, goodness. A lot of hubris. And I was bringing a lot of youth. Um, so here's the thing that was really interesting. Well, there were a couple of aspects that intrigued me. So the first thing I'll say is that the Beatitudes, one of the Beatitudes is, blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness. And I thought I knew what that meant. And then I found people who, when they heard that and I'm going to definitely put this in quotes, but this is their words, when they heard that a man of God was coming to the village to share a word of truth, they dropped everything and they would walk for hours or days to get to the village so that they could hear what the man of God had to say. We take so for granted the fact that we can readily grab a hold of scripture and consume it at any time that we want to, in any form and format that we want to. We can't fathom the notion of, what if you didn't have access to a Bible? And even if you did, you weren't literate, so you couldn't read it.
Wow.
In that
Yeah.
context, now you're reliant on oral tradition.
Hmm.
And so if someone's going to speak, you're going to do everything you can to get there and listen, because it's the only way you can possibly know what God's desire is for your life.
I mean, that's otherworldly trying to just picture that. You're
Yes.
19, okay? You're 19.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be like, dating girls and running around and getting speeding tickets, right? I mean,
Correct.
what
Correct.
You're 19. You're walking through the bush, which sounds very
Yeah.
dangerous. I
Oh, it
mean,
was very much
yeah.
so.
I mean,
Very
for
much
lots
so.
of reasons, but it sounds
Yeah,
dangerous.
it was.
Okay, so you at 19, you're dropped in the middle of the wilderness. You're
Yep.
facing
Yep.
danger, and
Yep.
you're the man of God.
Yeah, it
Right?
was
No pressure. No pressure.
unreal. Yeah, no, no, no big
Wow.
deal. This may be the one shot they have to hear the truth. So don't screw it up. It's fine.
Yeah,
You'll be
right.
good. Yeah.
So it's you, a translator, and a Bible,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. And
Wow.
yeah, and there were now one blessing in all of this was that so much of scripture uses agrarian illustrations, right? So it uses things like the shepherd, it talks about the seed, it has all of these ways of describing things
Hmm.
that we in Western culture have to go, okay, let me put myself in that place. Let me think about what sheep are like. Let me try to grasp how seeds work. And there, I didn't have to do anything but just literally share exactly the parable or the story. And they would go, oh, I, that totally resonates for me. That's exactly what I experience every day that I interact with sheep. That's precisely how seeds work. I totally get all the things you're describing about the vineyard and about the vine and how it works. So it was really refreshing to see that those things just landed without an issue. Um,
Wow.
it
Okay.
was it was incredible. So yeah, so that helped. Um, but to your point about danger, my first, and I mean my first night in the bush, we're sitting around a fire, and the elder of the village is sharing stories, and he is talking as casually, Rory, as you and I are right now, and says, "Well, uh, elephants are trampling our crops. What the elephants don't trample, hordes of ants come in and eat whatever's left over. And 6 weeks ago, oh, and we have to be careful that the children don't get too close to the river. 6 weeks ago, my nephew got too close to the river. A crocodile snatched him and ate him. And this is just normal discussion. Like, this is just what's going on in life. And my eyes were as big as saucers. I grew up in a suburban environment in Fort Worth, Texas. And I'm like, dear Lord, what have I gotten myself into?
I mean, how do you go to sleep? Seriously. I mean,
Yeah.
you're going to get
Yeah.
eaten or stung or bit or trampled
Uh-huh.
or
Uh-huh. Yep.
whatever. I
You
don't.
got it. You
And
got
at 19, you just thought this was cool.
it. Yeah, again, I mentioned the hubris part earlier, right? Like
For
I
sure.
didn't know what I didn't
For
know.
sure.
I had no attachments. I would love to say that I've got the level of faith that I could go do that again today at 46 with all the responsibilities that I have, but it'd be a lot harder.
Sure. Now, obviously, this changed you, impacted you, really meant something to you because the book itself, the Canteen, um, and I know there's a subline to it, and I apologize.
No, you're good. Abandoning
Abandon it.
self-sufficiency to fully rely on God.
There we go. Couldn't read my own handwriting. I apologize.
You're good. You're good.
So the book is about this and everything that
Yeah,
came from it. It's more in depth.
that's right.
I know you don't want to give away the secret sauce of the book, but can you give us an idea of, I mean,
Yeah.
you must have gained something life-changing out of this whole thing.
Hardly a day goes by that I don't think about the things the Lord showed me in Africa and the ways that I grew in my faith. It was literally life changing. And the thing that I would characterize it as is we have in the West an illusion of self sufficiency. You and I have the belief and the tangible experience on a daily basis. Well, the things that I have are because I work hard, right? If I work hard, then good things happen. I work hard. I have connections. I invest in people. I invest in relationships. I do all of this activity. And as a result, money shows up in my bank account. And because money shows up in my bank account, because I'm smart, because I'm talented, because I'm disciplined, maybe a little lucky, but like all of those things together, because of all that, money shows up. And now that money shows up, I'm able to pay for this house, keep the lights on, buy delicious coffee. I'm able to do all of these things in life. And what we at some level know, but often overlook is sure, but where'd you get that talent? Where did those connections come from? How did those introductions happen? Like it's all by the grace of God. It's all gifts from him. But we have so many layers of indirection in the West that we don't see the direct connection of how he is planting things into our lives every single day and how he is raining down into our lives every single day. They have no illusion of self sufficiency in Africa, right? So they can literally see the connection. If God doesn't send rain, the crops will not grow. I do not eat. I starve. I die. And so the connection to God is abundantly clear. And it's literally the same for us. But because of all of the layers of indirection, we end up with this illusion that it's us when, of course,
Yeah.
it's not.
Never thought about that like that. But I mean, I suppose that's what going to a place like this gives you the perspective on. I mean,
Yeah,
because you can imagine it, I can sit here
sure.
and hear your story. I can imagine it, but I can't
Yeah,
really, I, I can't experience it without
right,
actually going. So,
right, right.
all right. So obviously we take a lot of things for granted. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, anything else you can tell us about that or?
Yeah. So it gave me new eyes to see various stories in scripture differently. So a great example would be the loaves and fishes. And there's a couple of different illustrations of that happen in the New Testament. At one point, it's the feeding of the 5,000. At another point, it's feeding the 4,000. And there's, again, a couple of different scenarios. But basically, the concept here was we've got all of these people that need to be fed. What do we have available? Oh gosh, all we could pull together was a few loaves of bread, a couple of fish. How are we going to do it? And of course, we know that ultimately it's a combination of faith and God's grace, and it happens, and the fish just never run out, the loaves just never run out. And there's other similar stories like that, right? Like the oil that never runs out in the Old Testament as the cakes are being made. But ultimately, seeing that and thinking of it in terms of, first of all, true dependence on God for provision. But number two, realizing that while it's true that God is the ultimate provider, we need to recognize the role that he expects us to play. Our tendency is to be like, Jesus, take the wheel, hands off, you do your thing. And one of the lessons I learned and was further reinforced for me from a dear friend a year ago is that if we don't bring our proverbial loaves and fishes to the table, there's nothing for God to multiply. And so in your
Yeah.
business, that might be that in faith, you pick up the phone and make one more call to a potential client. Or in your marriage, it might be that you're showing up each and every day and putting your spouse first, even when things aren't necessarily reciprocating because they're going through a tough season. And in your family, it's that you're lending an ear or lending a shoulder to support someone who's not easy to love. And in your health, you're lacing up your sneakers and you're putting in one more workout, or you're drinking one more thing of water instead of going to the easy answer, which is the soda or whatever it might be, right? And you just time and time again, whatever arena we're talking about, it's recognizing, okay, I absolutely am placing my faith in terms of outcome on God, and timing is on God. But I still have a part to play here in bringing my proverbial loaves and fishes to the table, and then having faith he's going to multiply that.
Wow, for sure. That makes total sense. I mean, obviously, there's a whole lot more to the book.
Yeah,
Very much looking forward to reading it. Cannot wait to get to that. And you brought up, I mean, you segued on your own here, which is perfect. And you started talking about business and marriage.
sure.
How do you go from this What do you take from maybe from this
Ooh,
opportunity that you went to when you were 19 and went through this? What do you take from that that leads you into wanting to take those lessons, apply them to businesses, apply them to marriages? Because
yeah.
I mean that's not necessarily a natural leap. Maybe it is, but it seems like kind of a big one.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, that's a terrific question. So, the first thing would be just, from the on the marriage front, it is really and truly uh, the symbol of our relationship with the Lord. And it's woven all throughout Scripture, right? So whether it's that we're the bride of Christ, or whether it's from the standpoint of him specifically going to Hosea and telling him, I want you to go find a harlot and I want you to marry her and I want you to bring her home and love her. Like that story of redemption, that story of truly unconditional love that's woven throughout Scripture. Marriage is the embodiment of that. If we aren't careful, we end up approaching and viewing marriage in a transactional fashion, as opposed to seeing it as an opportunity to selflessly love someone else, and build a mutually reciprocal, loving arrangement. And so the lessons that I learned in terms of relying on God for my needs to be met rather than relying on myself, relying on God in spite of the circumstances, in spite of the hardships. All of those lessons from Africa translate very nicely into marriage. One of my uh, favorite things to say about marriage is that it's an institution that God created and it's designed to kill you. And that is both humorous
Okay.
and 100% accurate because it is designed to kill you. It's designed to kill your ego.
Hmm.
And so
Okay.
you take your ego, you take your perspective of yourself, you take your wants, you take your desires, you take everything that is selfish about you, and you place it on the altar and kill it. Because what matters is what is God's will. What matters is how can you love and serve your spouse, and in doing so, you end up getting your needs met, um, rather than what we far too often do, which is come to our mate with a basket full of needs. I need respect, and I need comfort, and I need affection, and I need emotional support, and I need all of these things. And there's whether it's love languages or whatever you might be doing to get clarity on needs, which is awesome. That stuff is terrific. When you use that to then go, haha, now that I have clearly articulated what my needs are, get get working. Here's this checklist of stuff for you to do. Like we're back to a transactional exchange. And so when we can release that and go, being aware of my needs is helpful, but then dying to myself and loving my spouse in spite of their imperfect ability to meet my needs, that's where the magic happens.
I love the viewpoint. I mean, personally, I think that's fantastic. I think that's one of the reasons why my wife has stayed with me all these these years.
Indeed.
Managed to take my big
Indeed.
old ego and throw it up on the
Uh-huh.
altar a long time ago.
Yeah.
But today, I mean, what you're saying, and again, I agree with it. But do you find that it kind of flies in the face of what you get from all your pop culture therapists that are out there?
Yeah, it certainly feels dated. It certainly feels a little old school. But I will say that living in Texas, it gets a little bit better traction here than some other parts of the country might. So we are a little bit insulated in that regard.
That's fair. All right, I understand. I got you. So to that end, though, I mean, this is something obviously you've put a lot of thought into and studied,
Yeah,
and that you care about deeply. You and your wife run a marriage ministry.
we do. We do. Yeah. So Um, that was that's been birthed out of a couple of things. So it's a second marriage for both of us. In both cases, we married young. In both cases, we had a 10+ year marriage, and ultimately the unequally yoked side of things created a real challenge. Being married to an unbeliever is not for the faint of heart, and that was true in both of our cases.
Wow.
And so eventually those marriages unraveled. And the Lord put us together pretty quickly after that. And we found ourselves in a blended dynamic, six kiddos, three of mine, three of hers, primary custody of all six. So all eight of us under one roof,
Wow.
kiddos ages 10 to 2. And it was an absolute zoo, to put it mildly. Um, on any given, I was a single dad for a while. She was a single mom for a couple of years. On any given Friday, if you were to ask her and her crew before we got together, hey, what do you guys, or ask us first, so I'll share that one. What would you guys do? And we'd go, oh, well, I'm certain we're going to order a pizza. I'm certain we're going to play a board game, and we might play the Wii together as a family, because we had that's just ways that we would connect. And on any given Friday, you would ask her and her crew, "What are you guys going to do?" They'd go, "Well, we're not really sure, but we're definitely leaving the house. Like we haven't built a plan yet, but it involves anything other than staying here." And so just diametrically opposed views of even what do you do with free time on a Friday.
Right.
Um, her and her kiddos, every single room of the house had a TV, it had a cable connection, and it had a DVD player connected. We had one TV. It didn't have cable. It only had a DVD player because we watched a movie collectively and there was a Wii connected so we could collectively play a game like that. So just radically different ideas of like what life looks like. And so then you smash all of that together. It was challenging to say the least. And so we went through some tough times. About 3 years in, we nearly divorced. And so the Phoenix marriage, God creates beauty out of ashes, the book you referenced earlier, is really kind of where that marriage ministry was birthed out of. It's how marriages fall apart, how you put them back together, and how you keep them together for a lifetime.
Nice. Nice. I love the title. I mean, rebirth was written right into the title, with
For
the way
sure.
you chose that imagery.
You
So,
bet.
that's wonderful. Um, you and your wife, though, I mean, it's one thing to go through this and to learn from it. It's a whole other thing to take on teaching other couples, and that's so what makes you and your wife take that next step to go teach it?
It's funny you asked that. I haven't been asked that in a long time, and we didn't want to. So at
Really?
the yeah, at the 3 year mark, as things were falling apart, full transparency, I got caught up in a 2 month affair that was part of what led us to almost break apart entirely. And as we started to stitch things back together, which is 110%, because my wife is a phenomenal human with more grace than I've ever encountered in my life. Um, I told her, hey, I'll work on this. We'll put this together. We'll make this work. But we are not going to say a word to anybody. Like, we've got to sweep this under the rug. We've got to move on. The shame, the embarrassment, I don't know that I can handle that.
Yeah.
So, like, I just need us to have that understanding that, like, this is going to be hush hush, but we'll fix it. And she looked at me and firmly, but also graciously was like, but if we don't talk about it, we can't heal. Like we have to talk about it. Like it's important to put it out there. And it took me a while to come around to that, but I did. And even to the extent that we hadn't started talking about it yet, people that saw us nearly fall apart and then stitch it back together started coming out of the woodwork asking for guidance and advice. Hey, will you grab coffee with me and my husband? Hey, will you go grab, lunch with him and chat with him and let me go grab coffee with your wife and we'll chat. And so we weren't wanting to have a ministry. It just came to us and people were desperate for a shoulder and an ear and some guidance. And so it sort of happened organically from there.
I mean, that's the best way for it to happen, to be honest,
Yeah,
right? So, it's supposed to be that way. So begrudgingly, you you walk into you walk
basically,
into this marriage
basically.
ministry. All right, good deal, good deal. And then you write a book on it, right? Which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
which is great.
yeah.
Okay, just briefly, and then I know I've got other things I want to ask you about, but the Phoenix marriage,
Yeah.
that is that an instructional? Is it an educational? What
Hmm.
is the book in terms of what could someone expect from that if they're having problems in their marriage?
Yeah, no, that's a super question. So what I would say is that it is, certainly to a certain extent our story and describes how things fell apart. But then it covers a topic that I feel like doesn't get addressed much at all, which is okay, let's assume that you have um, damaged substantially the trust in your relationship.
Hmm.
Ideally, you would read it and it would serve as guardrails, and you never get to that point. But let's say that that ship has sailed, and whether or not it was infidelity, it could have been anything, right? Trust is can be violated for a variety of reasons. But let's just
Sure.
say the trust has been damaged. Uh, how does one actually go about systematically repairing it? Because the thing that I found as a challenge for me is communication has always been my strong suit. I am very comfortable with words, always have been. I went to college on a debate scholarship. I utilize public speaking now as a platform in marriage ministry, but also in my professional vocation. And so I've always felt comfortable getting up in front of a crowd of people or having a dialogue with another person. Words are my friend. But if you have previously used words and in doing so broken the trust, and they now no longer can trust what you have to say, how the heck do you put things back together? Because everything you say is null and void. And
Right.
so as you're trying to provide reassurance, it's like, well, yeah, but you're using words, and I've already learned I can't trust your words. So now what? And so I felt really disarmed in that.
Yeah.
And so having a roadmap for how does one go about rebuilding the trust? A, it's possible, and that's just reaffirming in and of itself. But B, how could you possibly go about doing that if you can't just keep saying, I apologize over and over? And so having a roadmap for that is pretty powerful, I would say.
I would imagine. Okay. It's funny that you said that, because I was thinking, okay, so you just lost your biggest weapon. As soon as I
That's
said
right.
that, you made your comment. I went, okay, well,
Yep.
yeah. So at least I'm getting this.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we see how that has led to that. Now your professional life is dealing with businesses,
Yep.
and tell me what you do there, and then let's see how it all clocks back to everything else you've done.
Sure, sure. So, um, I get bored easily is probably the easiest way to describe who I am and what I'm about. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've started and sold businesses throughout my life. I've got, I think right now, about five different entities in various disciplines and domains. Where I spend the majority of my time and energy is in working with business owners and entrepreneurs, helping them figure out how do they really effectively squeeze as much value out of their business as possible. And that ranges everything from maximizing their tax strategy to figuring out how to extract cash flow and funnel that into building other assets, up to and including the entity itself. Is it a sellable business? And
Hmm.
if it is, how do we maximize that exit and ensure that your life's work, your blood, sweat, and tears that you've been pouring into this entity gets the most bang for your buck? And there's a whole discipline and methodology around that. There's a whole emerging industry around that. I got a certification in exit planning earlier this year. So there's a lot of things that go into that. Um, but ultimately, what I have found so fascinating is when I went this route, I did it because I thought it was interesting. I did it because I thought it was fascinating. I did it because I'm an entrepreneur myself, but I had imagined at the outset, well, this is just a commercial thing I'm going to go do, which is great, but it doesn't really have a biblical tie back. And the reality is, it's more of a mission field than anything I've ever done because of how closely tied money and stewardship is to our faith, and how interested the Lord is in our heart and in what we do with our life's work. And so it's been fascinating to see him show up and the opportunities I've had to speak into and impact people's lives through what would otherwise appear like a purely um, you know, monetary oriented domain, it's got kingdom woven all throughout it.
Wow. Now, is
Yeah.
this something that you did before and then branched off and opened your own, or did you just have this vision and say, "Hey, this is where I'm going. This is what I'm doing. I'm opening my own shingle. Here it is. Goodbye."
Yeah, great question. So yes, it's something that I've done previously. In my corporate days, all of my clients were in the finance industry. So it was Goldman Sachs, and it was, Chase Bank, and it was a couple of big pension funds, CalPERS, and in California, OMERS in Ontario. So lots of work with financial institutions on the institutional side of things, and then pivoted in 2014 to shift to personal finance, and then hung my own shingle, left a Fortune 400 to then go do this directly for myself and for my family. And so we launched that coming up on 5 years. October 2020 was when we launched. And so coming up on 5 years for that.
Congratulations. I mean, that's a big
Thank you
milestone to
kindly.
hit that 5 years. That's
Yeah,
when
indeed.
you're new
Indeed.
business entrepreneur. That's fantastic. All
Oh, yeah.
right. So I guess what is the faith connection to the business aspect? Because I know you sort of gloss over that a little bit. I mean, you're dealing with business owners who may or may not share that faith. So is this just within you driving what you're doing, or are you sharing that as a part of what you're teaching them how to do?
Yeah. Oh, I so appreciate that question. And you made a comment earlier about, that it's navigating these faith questions and issues is something you have to be to a certain extent delicate about in our modern times. Paul talked about seasoning your speech with salt, and so I will say that I do, kind of uh, test the waters as I'm engaging with clients to see how receptive they are. And I really view it as a spectrum. So I do have some clients for whom it's quite obvious they have no interest in the faith aspect being a part of what we're doing, and that's fine. I back off of it from a perspective of how it informs the decisions they're making, but I still have it be a part of what I'm saying. But
Nice.
then I will pretty quickly identify those people that are willing to have that be a part of the discussion. And so as we're talking about goals, we'll talk about the legacy of faith, and we'll talk about how the sale of this business can be used to impact the kingdom. And so there will be very open conversations about that. And then the spectrum continues further. And those people that will allow me to and give me permission to, I will actually hold them accountable for things they said they were important that were important to them, whether that be tithing as a discipline, whether that be carving out part of their exit to do something that's directly kingdom focused. There's a lot of charitable tools in the tool belt that I utilize, and I educate and inform people, and again, even will really, strongly encourage folks to go and do, so that it lines up with what they said their goals were, lines up what they said what their intent was, and so it very much gets woven into the fiber of how we operate. On mute.
Whoops. All right. I
Hey.
appreciate that. That's a very honest answer. The trials and tribulations of podcasting all day, every day. But hey, I do appreciate the answer and the way you embrace that. Now I know you've talked a lot about legacy, and you just sort of brought that up in terms of businesses, and then you also have a book that's Legends Don't Retire. So I'm curious how all that plays into your business. Also, you mentioned like potential buyouts and sort of an
Sure.
end game for the business. How does all that work?
Oh my gosh. I feel like we've done a disservice in the way that we have elevated and promoted this notion of retirement. Um, the reality is that most people, there are some exceptions, but most people within 6 months, if not a year of retirement, quickly tire of golf, quickly tire of fishing, quickly tire of, I'm just going to hang out at the beach and do nothing. We aren't wired for it. And so, although it may be true that a successful exit means that you don't need to generate any more income, it is not true that the fact that you are still breathing and have blood pumping through you means that God's done with you. That's definitely not true. The fact that you're still breathing, you still have blood pumping through you, he has a job. And so it's about figuring out, okay, what's that next chapter in my life? What's that next mission or passion project that I'm going to pour my energy and my talents into? And hey, what a blessing that you don't have to worry about a paycheck. That's not done yet. And I have searched all throughout Scripture, Rory, to find an example of retirement. Just one biblical example of retirement, and I've only found one. So here's the model.
Okay.
It's Moses. Okay. Moses is the only example of retirement I've ever seen. And here was his path. Career number one, 40 years as a shepherd. Career number two, 40 years leading the children of Israel through the wilderness. After completing career number two, he had to train his successor, Joshua. Once he trained his successor, the Lord said, you know what? You did a great job. I'm going to bless you with a sabbatical. His sabbatical was he got to climb a mountain in his later years. He's in his golden years. Your sabbatical is you get to climb a mountain. When he climbed the mountain, he got to see the promised land and die. That is biblical retirement.
Halfway through that, I'm like, oh no, I think I know where he's going with this. Oh my goodness. It's so accurate. I've never heard that before that way, but my goodness, that's today's life, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, oh wow. And I feel really bad now. I think I need to go lay down.
I mean, here's the tragedy, right? We all have been coached by society, maybe directly by our parents. You should aspire to build up this theoretical pool of dollars. And after doing so, you then are rewarded with being able to kick back and live the easy life. And what happens is you missed out for decades on ball games. You missed out for decades on opportunities to be there when your spouse needed you most, when your kids needed you most. There were vacations that everybody else was enjoying, but you were still logging in and checking email and getting that next transaction done and whatever. And so you missed out on all of these key moments in life, teachable moments, opportunities to begin building that legacy. And then you reach that pinnacle. You have that theoretical pool of dollars. You mash the magic button, and it's super fun for about 6 weeks. And then
Yeah.
you go, oh, I feel hollow. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm about. I don't know why I sacrificed the way I did. And there's so many people that then end up either in some kind of really sad depression spiral because you ripped away their identity because their identity was tied to work, sadly. You ripped away their social circle because every one of their friends was someone from work. And you ripped away the thing that kept them occupied and kept them busy with their time. That thing's gone. And so they've lost their identity, they've lost their social circle, they've lost the thing that gave them a sense of meaning and power and success. All of that's gone. And now they don't know who they are. And they end up either, shame, depression cycle, or they just go get another job. Or in the case of entrepreneurs, they go start another business because they're bored. So
I mean, that
it's
might
a
be
real
one of the
problem.
most depressing things I've heard in a long time.
Yeah.
But it's so accurate, my gosh. So the idea behind legends don't retire then is
That it's absolutely 100% okay to retire from something. It's just really important that you retire to something.
okay. All right. So you gotta have a second act. You gotta have another act
That's
after
right.
that.
You got
Nice.
it. You got
Nice, nice, nice. All right. I think I'm starting to see how your brain works over here. I'm starting to figure it out a little bit, but
it.
I
Wow.
I
Once
love
you
it.
get it all figured out, if you'll let me know, that'd be awesome.
I'll call you. Yeah, for,
Thanks.
for sure. All right, I love this. I really do. It's great because you can really see your path. Through your
Yeah.
books, through your
Yeah.
professional work, and everything that you've done.
Sure.
Not many people get to sort of chronicle their lives along with
Indeed.
what they're teaching. I mean, that's you've been very blessed in that way.
Amen.
Yeah.
And uh, I will say, because you mentioned earlier that fatherhood is a significant component of the folks that tune into you on a daily basis. I have told people on many occasions I had an unfair advantage in life. And the unfair advantage that I had in life was two parents that I knew unequivocally loved me no matter what. And that has allowed me to have an emotional safety net to take risks and to not worry about, hey, what if this doesn't work out? What if I fail at starting this business venture? What if I fail at writing this book? What if I fail at this initiative or that initiative? Knowing that I'm going to be loved no matter what, knowing that my parents were there and they were proud of me regardless of the outcome, was absolutely an unfair advantage that has continued to serve me well in my life.
That's beautiful. And honestly, thank you for sharing that. When you don't have that in your life, those of us who did not have that, we talk about
Yeah.
that. We make sure that
Mm,
that's known. What you
yep.
never hear about are the folks like you who are willing to give that testimony and say, you know what? Let me just tell you how good I had it with two parents who love me.
Yes.
And I think that's powerful. I think that needs to happen more.
Yep.
Yeah,
Agreed.
100%.
Agreed.
I love this. I love what you're bringing here. Let me make sure because the canteen's coming out. All
It
right, and
is
and
in August. Woohoo!
this was like what started this whole thing, rolling down the hill for
Yeah.
Kyle over here.
Yeah,
So,
that's right. That's right.
anything else about the canteen you want to like let us in on? Maybe throw a little bait in the water. See if we take the hook and go buy it because it sounds awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll give you two nuggets.
Awesome.
So one is that um we are so blessed and we are so um just drowning in abundance and we miss that. The It's not lost on me. I think back nearly daily to the fact that they had in Africa what's known as a staple food. It's called sudza, which is this like mushy cornmeal-ish kind of a thing. And that's what was on the menu literally every single day. Every single day. I met a business owner there who had, by all rights, had life by the horns in Zimbabwe. Um, had people that worked for him, owned trucks, lived a good life. We were hitchhiking one day. There's a couple of different hitchhiking stories in the book. And I was just curious. I was asking him, like, hey, when was the last time you ate? It was the middle of the day, like 3 o'clock. And he had to think about it. He went, and then he realized that it was the day before was the last time he'd eaten. So in the US, we eat for sport. Hey, Rory, let's go grab some lunch. What do you want? I was thinking we'd grab tacos. You're like, not really in the mood for tacos. I had tacos yesterday. There, they eat to kill the hunger pains. And so I share that to
Yeah.
say that the abundance that we are drowning in is something that we are often blind to. And one of the things that readers will find in the book is an opportunity to unmask that and really inspect themselves about what aspects of their lives do they take for granted on the daily.
Nice.
And then the second thing, and this really ties back to the title of the book, is I won't share the story because it really is kind of the climax that happens in chapter 6. But what I will say is that every one of us has a proverbial canteen that we are clutching to. When I was in Africa, there was a day when it was literally a canteen of water, and I thought I was going to die. And were it not for God's intervention, I would have. But every one of us has a proverbial canteen that we are clutching. It might be your Rolodex of relationships. It might be the money in your bank account. It might be your status. It might be the house that you live in. It could be just what you've achieved in your career. But there's something that you're gripping onto as your lifeline. And this book is a challenge for you to let go of that canteen and to rely on God for your provision.
Hmm. Love that. Absolutely love that. I mean, wow, cannot wait to read this and love the way you describe it too. You can tell that you put yourself really into this project in a huge way. So, congratulations on that. Looking forward
Thank
to
you,
seeing
sir.
it when it comes out. Now, it does come out in August. Is that what you told me?
That is correct. August 12th, at a online store near you, but also physical bookstores. It's going to be in Barnes and Noble and a few other distributors as well.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly look out for that.
Good deal. Good deal. Now, I know I've got a few links and things like that. Am I going to have a link
Sure.
to pre-order or anything like that, or depending on when
Yes.
this
Yeah.
comes out in relation? Okay.
Absolutely. So we've already got a
Perfect.
pre-order page up and going. We've got reviews populating already from our beta testers who were so gracious to read and provide feedback earlier. And so that's going to be actually on Barnes and Noble specifically is where we'll have the pre-order set up. And then you can always connect to stuff that we're doing at kylegabhart.com as kind of the one landing site that connects to all the different threads of things going on in my world.
Good deal. All right. Perfect. I mean, I probably could have just had you end with the nuggets from the canteen, but I just feel like you got one more in you. I think you got one more in there, Kyle. So I'm going to end with my usual ending here. Okay. Is there anything I didn't ask you about, brother? Is there anything that we talked about? Maybe you want to drive home a little harder. Maybe an additional nugget, maybe not having to do with that book, something else. I don't know. Anything that you still got inside you there that you want to make sure you leave out here on the table for my folks who have thoroughly enjoyed hearing what you had to say here today.
Sure. No, I'd be happy to. So, my father, in addition to being a minister, was a marriage and family counselor. And so I had the benefit of learning a lot from him about communication, learning a lot from him about relationships. And he was kind of famous for what I would describe as fortune cookie wisdom, like these really beautiful one-liners that would provide clarity and wisdom all in a neat little package. And one of the things that he was fond of sharing is that never and always are really big words. Use them sparingly. So that was one bit of wisdom that he would share. And so anytime you're tempted in a relationship, certainly in marriage, but I would say in a relationship, to use never or always, encourage you to probably set that aside because it's likely not accurate. But then the second thing that was really, really common for him to share in relationships was ask for what you need, but accept what you get. And I think that's viable in marriage. I think it's viable in the workplace. I think it's viable in your relationship with the Lord. Step one is being aware of what you need. And it's important to ask for that. It's absolutely crucial to be vocal about what you need in a relationship. But what you can't do is then turn that into an expectation that the party on the other end now has an obligation to fulfill that transaction. So absolutely ask for what you need, but then accept what you get. And that moment of contentment and that release will do wonders for your relationship with humans and wonders for your relationship with the Almighty.
Great way to end. I knew you had something else in there. All right. That's beautiful. Absolutely wonderful. Folks, author, speaker, MC, strategist, father, husband, and like I said before, author again and again. Kyle Gabhart. Kyle, thank you so much for coming in here, sharing about your projects, about your family, about your faith. It's been really amazing, and I think you gave people a lot to think about today. I appreciate that.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Rory. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Folks, this has been another episode of the Power Man Podcast. The reason that we bring powerful men like this on here with very powerful messages is because we absolutely support you in your quest to be a better protector, a better provider, and a better leader tomorrow than you are today, to be a better man, a better husband, a better father tomorrow than you are today. And the reason that we support that is because you are worth it. You have value. And at some point, you have to believe it. Until next time.